Parikshit Luthra, the Tata Group faces fresh turbulence in the aviation space after more than 70 Air India Express flights were cancelled. Today, in a statement, the airline said a section of the cabin crew members called in sick at the last minute and it is engaging with the disgruntled crew members. There was chaos at several airports as hundreds of passengers were left stranded. Air India Express has also apologized to passengers for the cancellations. CNBC-TV18 has also accessed a letter that Air India Express Employees Union had written to Tata Sons Chairman N. Chandrasekaran on the 26th of April. The union had alleged there is growing unrest and dissatisfaction among employees after takeover by the Tata Group. The staff also alleged inequality in payroll and hiring, further claiming that they are mistreated and sidelined by new candidates. Let me go across to Danish Anand, who has been tracking this story. Danish, what is the latest? We hear that these union members of Air India Express crew, they have also reached out to the Aviation Ministry, to the Labour Ministry. Any response from the government, from the Labour Ministry or the Aviation Ministry so far?
Well, as far as the Aviation Ministry is concerned, it has already acted on whatever has happened since morning, and it has clearly directed Air India Express to come out with a statement and share the exact problems that are happening and how are they planning to address that. Moreover, AI Express has also been ordered by the Ministry of Civil Aviation to ensure that there is less passenger disruption, and whatever guidelines have been laid by the DGCA for the passengers, those have to be followed in full letter and spirit. And as far as the response from the Labour Ministry is concerned, well, over the past 1 year, the Union Labour Ministry has sent 2 show-cause notices to Air India Express, but what transpired since morning, it is a very different kind of situation that we are seeing Air India Express falling into. The allegations are quite severe, and it talks about right from the compensation to the basic labor laws, and that has been alleged by the union that these are not being followed, and they have asked the government to intervene. Sources have also told us that in the past 2 months, the union has written to the management over 300 times. So they have sent several emails, and finally, when nothing was actually moving in their favor, today we saw a mass sick leave being reported by Air India Express crew members.
All right. Thank you for summing up all the action for us, Danish. We'll continue tracking the story with you, but let me take this further with Sanjay Lazar, aviation expert and CEO at Aviala's Consultants, and Devesh Agarwal, Chief Analyst at BangaloreAviation.com. Sanjay, if I can begin with you, does this have similarities to the mass leaves by crew members at Vistara? What are the lessons for Air India and Tata Sons here?
Good evening, Parikshit. Thank you for having me on the show. Yes, it mirrors what happened at Vistara. The only difference here, I believe, is that there is a trade union involved, and they have been communicating and corresponding with the chairman of the company and their bosses in Air India Express. Now, this, if you will recall, is part of a larger plan for, a overall merger of 4 aviation entities by the Tata Group, which is an extremely ambitious and challenging program. And it pits, airline staff of different cadres and categories, really, and seniorities and salaries to become one. And I think this is what is emerging now. And we can see, we've read the letter has been widely reported in the media. There's significant concerns that the cabin crew have expressed.
Right. Devesh Agarwal, if I were to come to you, as Sanjay was pointing out, airline mergers, be it in India or globally, can be extremely complicated. What is the global example that the Tata Group needs to follow here, the Air India management needs to follow, in order to make sure there is a smooth transition for everyone at different levels of the crew community in these companies, or there is no clear answer or clear template?
Hi, Parikshit. Thanks so much for having me. I have been, this is not unexpected. I think pretty much most of us in the aviation community were seeing that this is going to happen. We have a prime example of the 2007 merger of Air India and Indian Airlines. And even now, probably 17 years later, after the merger, there is still within that, within the Air India merged Air India, there is still that, oh, that person is an IC, you know, the old Indian Airlines person. I'm an AI person. The other day, there was a news report where people, you know, from Air India turned around and said, what have the Vistara people achieved? You know, so you have got 4 different organizations, different cultures. And I would take an example of, say, the IAG, which includes British Airways, Iberia, and other airlines. Intelligent in the sense what they've done is they've let each airline continue to operate in its own brand. They have centralized, you know, the critical item, shall we say, function. Manufacturer, whether it's Airbus, whether it's Boeing, I turn around and say, hey, I'm going to buy 500 aircraft from you. How I choose to break up the order. That is how, if you see China does with both Boeing and Airbus, the Chinese government orders the aircraft and it decides which airline needs to get which aircraft and when. So, you know, things like procurement, things like you can do, you know, network. But let the operations of each airline continue to operate in their own brand, in their own method, so that people slowly you start, and at the same time, you slowly start bringing in that corporate culture, which is towards the common vision, so that 3, 4, 5 years from now, you are ready to bring airlines together. If you look at it, the entire group is quite young. Air India is a very, very legacy airline. They've got a lot of ex-government employees. So they're
Right.
used to things in a certain way. You cannot put the two of them together. There is this air of superiority within Air India, which I, in many ways, many times think is highly unjustified. But that is going to create its own situation. Air India Express, again, was part of Air India, but of course, it was a much more efficiently run airline. So I feel that the erstwhile Air Asia and the erstwhile Air India Express should be merged, but it has to be done in a more, you know, how do I use the word, in a more systematic manner. First, create the corporate culture that you want within, you know, each individual airline, and then push it together. It's going to be here. They're just trying to, you know, pardon me, they're making a khichdi of the whole thing.
Right. Sanjay, if I can come to you, the letter written by the Air India Express Union to N. Chandrasekharan also said that several employees with impeccable record were being removed. Air Asia employees were being given permanent payroll while Air India Express staff were being terminated. Now, why do these situations occur? Is it because you have employees who have done very well, who may have a great track record, but their salaries may be very high, and you want to terminate them, end their employment contracts in order to right-size the company, bring salaries to a certain level?
Parikshit, before I just answer that, I'd like to continue where Devesh pointed out. You know, we at our research have studied number of mergers. I myself have seen about 4 or 5. I think the key point, you know, whether it's Delta, whether it's Alaska, Hawaii, whether it's you know, Asiana and Korean, whether it's Air France, KLM, you know, very few have been very successful. But the key point is HR. You know, HR has to be at the center of any merger, and it should be somebody from an aviation field, and ideally should be a third party, not belong to airline A or airline B, because there's always this allegation of he did more for his people or she did more for her people. And that's what we are seeing reflected both in the Vistara situation as well as in the Air Asia, Air India Express. Now, coming to this allegation in the letter by the union, I don't believe that the Air India Express cabin crew are paid very much higher than the Air Asia crew, and that's why they're being terminated. There must be deeper reasons, but there have been a series of letters over the last 1 year, if I recollect reading in the media. There have been issues. They've gone to the Regional Labour Commissioner. There are a lot of cases, I believe, which are pending in tribunals and in the Regional Labour Commissioner with regard to unfair termination or wrongful, you know, non-extension of contracts. I don't know this aspect of Air Asia being allowed to, go on till 58. I just, assumed it's existing. It's exactly like what exists in Air India or Vistara, where it's contract up till 58. So if there is something, really separately being planned for Air India Express, then that would fall on the anvil of discriminatory practices, which the Labour Commissioner and the Labour Ministry will look at. You can't have one company merging with one brand, one AOP, one service regulations, and then have two, superannuation dates or contractual arrangements. That's not allowed. It's same pay for same people in the same aircraft.
Right.
So, or the same workspace. So that's a cardinal rule of Indian labor law. I do not believe that this group would violate that. But if there is anything, I believe they're already before the Labour Commissioner, and I think that should be looked at as and when it's looked at.
Right. Devesh Agarwal, coming back to you, do you also feel that the credibility of the airline would be at stake if you continue with cancellations abruptly? For example, just over the last 24 hours, there have been 80 flights impacted. We should have better communication. Of course, now there are being tweets put out by Air India Express telling passengers that they must check about their schedule. They can seek a refund as well, or they can seek a postponement of their flight. But what do they do in order to communicate better with customers in the next few days and keep the disruptions to a minimum?
Parikshit, it is, but that is, it's almost a rhetorical question. Any cancellation is going to have an impact on the airline's reputation. I have said in the past, unfortunately, the biggest problem in India is that still about 90% of all reservations are made through a travel agent. And when travel agents make the reservation, they put their contact information. They do not put the passenger's contact information into the reservation. So the airline can at best put out a message to whatever is the contact information on the reservation itself. But even then, I mean, communicating to somebody that, hey, the flight is canceled, that's not the answer. I mean, then, okay, you have to, unfortunately, India does not have a passenger charter which is strong like, the European Union, the EU 261 rule, which says if you cancel a flight, you, Mr. Airline, are responsible for putting the passenger onto some other airline or paying them, 600 euros, which is 60,000 rupees. So, that kind of thing is not there in India. So people obviously are going to fume. They are going to be angry. They are going to express anger. There is no doubt about that. And, I was just going to say what Sanjay said. If you notice, if you look at the previous mergers, you take Continental with Northwest, you take American Airlines with US Air, and you take, Continental and United and Northwest and Delta, all of these were not just led by very able HR departments, but they were led by very strong CEOs who had made their bones in the aviation business. Whether at Delta it was Anderson, whether it was Gordon Bethune, whether it was Willie Walsh. You have CEOs who are known for their ability in the aviation industry. And with due credit to Mr. Campbell, I mean, he's a very, very nice gentleman. He is experienced, but he is not experienced in the elements of Indian politics, labor, and, the culture and the nuances. And it goes back to the thing that Air India Express, whether we like it or not, the erstwhile Air India Express and the erstwhile Air India was a government organization. Now, Sanjay made something, point about labor laws and superannuation and things like that. And I was just reading yesterday, or was it day before, Crystal said by the year 2027 or 2028, 50% of India's international traffic would be carried by Indian carriers. Our biggest competition, we all know, are the Gulf carriers, the Qatar Airways, the Emirates, the Etihads, Gulf Air. Guess what? These people don't have any superannuation rules. They don't want you to chuck you out, like it or not. They'll give you a fabulous salary. They'll keep it tax-free. But that is as long as you're employed by them. The day they want to terminate the employment, they terminate it. Now, is it something that India has to also start looking at as a global competitive? We have in the global competitive arena, how do we compete with these kinds of situations where we may not have such protective labor laws? Is it something that is needed? I mean, I'm just throwing a trial balloon. I'm not saying this should not be done. I do believe things need to be fair, but I'm also saying that Tatas have got 4 different corporate cultures or other company cultures in their hand, and they really need to first synchronize the cultures at a local level before attempting to merge them.
Right. And very quickly, Sanjay, we've run out of time. When we're speaking about merging 4 entities with different cultures, like Devesh Agarwal pointing out, and you want to compete with the best globally, what do you need to do for the long term in order to make sure that there is employee satisfaction and you continue to grow in a sustainable manner? Because these kind of disruptions will affect your growth also in the near term.
Well, Parikshit, I think Devesh hit the nail on the head. He said strong CEO. I said strong HR. You need people from outside who have aviation backing and strong character. In this particular situation that we're seeing today, the allegations from the employees are that the HR and the in-flight heads belong to a particular carrier, and that is why they are supporting their people over them. So these allegations and cross allegations will always happen. Bring outsiders. I mean, the Tatas are a huge company. I mean, they have 30, 40 listed companies. They have professionals from all around the world. They can pick up. Air India has already picked up some of the best minds in the world. I think Air India Express should take a leaf out of that book and go in and pick up, top HR head, top in-flight head, and make sure that these allegations bring people. I believe in this, Parikshit. Nothing is insurmountable if you have dialogue. If you do not have dialogue, you can't. I agree with Crystal and I agree with Devesh. We are going to mount the greatest challenge on the Mid-East carriers. I'm very bullish about India's growth in aviation, and we should not let small stones or pebbles, disturb this flight path. Let's fly. We need to see 160, 170, 180 million passengers. Yeah.
Seconds. I mean,
all right. Thank you very much, Sanjay Lazar, Devesh Agarwal, for joining us on the program.
Okay.
Devesh, I've unfortunately run out of time.
I was just going to say,
we have to take a break, but
in terms of HR, I mean, Sanjay was saying HR. That's all I was saying.
We'll come.
It's a human organization. I mean, what more? The Tatas are the biggest human organization.
All right. Thank you, Devesh. We've completely run out of time. We'll thank our guests, but we'll take a break. But on the other side, on election exchange, 96 constituencies across 10 states and union territories will vote on the 4th phase of the Lok Sabha election. A special discussion when we return.